Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. If you've never been an Audible customer and want to see what they offer, just go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title for free and start listening. It's that easy. Why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. And with this free 30-day trial, you'll have your pick of it all. You can hear books of all genres narrated by Jim Dale, Stephen Fry, Will Patton, Alex Hyde White, Jeff Brick, Neil Shaw, William Demerit, and even a few by me, George Sirois. So go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and start your own 30-day journey with Audible today.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of the award-winning podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire, and you're listening to the Excelsior Journeys with George Sirois. Prepare to ignite.
Is there a burning desire within to share your creativity with the rest of the world? Do you insist on pursuing your passion by any means necessary? Then you are on an Excelsior journey, and you are not alone. Welcome back to Excelsior Journeys. My name is George Sirois. Thank you so much for being here. And one thing that I really have to say about success itself is that it's always like the real, wonderful people that become successful and then make a point to build on their success by making other people successful, which is what I got to experience a couple of years ago when I met Mark Coker, who is the CEO of Smashwords. Now, those of you who may not know what Smashwords really is, Smashwords is I would say, the best alternative of getting into self-publishing that you can possibly get. A lot of people really look to Amazon. What Smashwords does is so much more than what Amazon can provide, and it's something that I'm looking forward to chatting with Mark today. Mark and our paths have crossed a couple of times during the past couple of years. I got to listen to his panels. He's actually gotten to listen to one of mine, and thanks to PennCon, we became very friendly, and he actually he and Smashwords became a big help to me at the 2018 Missouri Writers Guild conference when they sent us a whole bunch of lanyards for the conference. It's something that I'm always very grateful to him for. And on year 3 of PennCon, here we finally are. We finally get to sit down and chat, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you the CEO of Smashwords, Mark Coker. How are you, Mark?
Great, George. It's great to be with you.
And it's great to have you here. And you are, I can safely say, you are the hero for so many different authors that are out there. Not to put any pressure on you. But,
no pressure.
but the tool that you have brought to us allows for so much more flexibility in the self-publishing world. Now, for those that are not as familiar, tell us the main selling factor for Smashwords.
Well, why don't we talk about what Smashwords is?
Yes.
First, Smashwords is a free ebook publishing platform. So we make it fast, free, and easy for any writer anywhere in the world to self-publish and sell and distribute an ebook.
Yes.
So I started the business 11 years ago,
mm-hmm.
and at the time the publishing industry was almost entirely 100% print centric. All sales of books were in the print format, and my wife and I, she became my wife, mm-hmm. my co-author. We wrote a novel together, and we wrote a novel about soap operas. Should probably share some backstory on that.
Yeah.
So my wife is a former reporter for Soap Opera Weekly magazine. And when I met her, and first I was fascinated that there was even a journalist job for soap opera reporters.
Right.
And I started, hearing her stories about what it was like living in Hollywood, going to the sets of the soap operas, interviewing the soap opera actors, and the stories were fascinating. And the bottom line was that she was basically telling me that the actors were more over the top nuts in their real lives than they were in their soap opera storylines. And I thought, well, that's fascinating. You should write a book about that. She said, well, why don't we write a book together? And I had always dreamed of writing a book.
Yeah.
I had actually tried to write a book. I started writing a book after graduating college on how to invest in the stock market. And I only made it into about the first chapter and quit. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And life got in the way, and I was busy working. And but I'd always wanted to come back to writing a book. It was kind of a dream. And then I met my wife, met Leslie Ann, and she said, well, why don't we write this book? And I thought, well, soap operas. I've never watched a soap opera in my life. I didn't think very highly of them. I didn't understand them. But I thought, what the heck? That sounds like it'd be a fun adventure.
Yeah.
And so we moved to Burbank, California for a couple months and started interviewing insiders and collecting all their dirt. We interviewed actors, actresses, hair and makeup stylists. They know all the secrets.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Agents, show writers. It was just a fascinating experience to learn all these stories.
It sounds almost like you had the material to kind of make like one of those those history of kinds of kinds of books where you can actually do like nonfiction if you wanted to.
We could have done it as nonfiction, but what I was really interested in from the very beginning was understanding what it's like as an actor or an actress, that kind of performer, and getting inside their world. And after hearing some of their stories, the first thing that I was struck by was that, mothers and fathers, don't let your daughters become actresses. It is a brutal world. As Americans, we tend to look up to celebrities.
Yeah.
We care about, we'll read cover stories in People magazine or Us on, the diet secrets of the stars.
Right.
But what you don't know is that often that diet secret involves starvation, cocaine, stomach stapling. What we learned is that it's really kind of a meat grinder.
Yeah. What
these actors and actresses go through, and I found myself just feeling very sympathetic for their plight, because it's so cutthroat.
Yeah.
And especially for the women, it was the experience of being an actress is really dehumanizing. What they have to do to themselves to even get the job. We ended up titling the book Boob Tube because breasts are so much of a big part of soap operas. And we found stories where in a single soap opera, one actress would get a boob job. And then the other actresses, just to compete against her, would get boob jobs.
Oh, wow.
And then the original actress who got her boob job, she'd get another one to make them even bigger. And we referred to these just amongst ourselves as like boob wars. I mean, this is insane. And we heard stories of young actresses in their 20s getting preventative facelifts. There was a story of an actress whose manager wanted her to get a boob job.
Right.
And she didn't have the money to pay for it. So he paid for it. And then she got the boob job. And then after she got the boob job done, the manager said, "Let me see them." She said, "No. I'm not going to let you see them."
Right.
And he raped her.
Ugh.
These are true stories. This is what's going on. And most people don't really know what the dark underbelly of celebrity culture is and what these actors and actresses do. And I came to really respect the work that they do. These actors are the hardest working actors in the world. They might have 50 pages of lines to learn every single day.
Yeah.
And, these are smart people with really difficult jobs. And, I prior to researching this, there was in my mind, there was a stigma associated with
Yeah.
soap operas. I kind of looked down upon them, like silly, stupid stuff that
Right.
I wouldn't ever watch myself. But after learning about the industry, I just really respected the people that were in it, and also felt sorry for the actors, the performers, and what they have to go through just to keep their jobs. But it was a fascinating experience. So after collecting all of this dirt of stories, we moved to a cabin in Vermont for 4 months. So a friend of mine said, "Hey, I got a cabin in Vermont. You can use it for free." And so
wow, that's fantastic.
It was. It was absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And so we didn't know anything about writing a book,
right?
But we had all of these stories that we collected from these nearly 50 interviews, and we decided we were going to turn it into a novel. We were going to fictionalize it and embellish it, and create composite characters and see where it goes. And over the course of 4 months, we plotted everything out, and we would sit down on the couch every morning with our laptops, and we would write out our assigned chapters.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, we'd switch laptops and edit each other. And that was also fun.
Yeah.
To see what Leslie Ann had written, and for her to see what I had written, and the experience of just writing a novel.
Yeah.
You know this.
Oh, yeah.
It is a mind-bending, amazing, intense experience that only a writer can understand.
Yeah.
The stuff comes out of your imagination that is just amazing.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden it exists on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
In print.
And I wrote the scenes of this evil manager.
Yeah.
And I shocked myself at like the things that I was able to bring to this character, and the sadistic violence, because I'm not a sadistic violent person.
No.
And I remember handing a laptop to my wife, and she got to that scene, and she looked at me, and her mouth was just agape. She was thinking, "What did I marry?
Yeah.
Where did this come from?" But I was just trying to imagine the violence of that situation, and I wrote that, and so it was a wonderful experience writing this book with my wife. I know a lot of people say it's difficult to write with wives, husbands, friends, but we just clicked so well. When I look at the book now, it's difficult to remember what I wrote and what she wrote, because we edited it and rewrote it so many times that it really became one voice. It was a lot of fun. And so after we'd finished writing the book, we hired a book doctor to help us edit it. We did multiple revision rounds. When it was finally in shape, we started pitching it to literary agents in New York.
Oh.
We were lucky enough to get offers of representation from 2 different top-tier literary agents.
Wow.
And we got to interview them and decide which one we wanted and which one we were going to reject.
Oh, that's the dream right there.
It was a good position to be in.
Yeah.
And we found a great agent. He was excited about our project. And the way an agent works is they're working on spec.
Yeah.
They're hoping to make this book as successful as they can. And so for an entire year, he shopped the book around to publishers, and no publisher wanted to touch it.
Right.
And it was really difficult for him to get feedback from the publishers. But he gave us some initial feedback, and we did a complete revision, and he loved the revision, and so he shopped it again.
Wow.
We went back to all the publishers and sent it to them again because he was still excited about it.
Yeah.
But finally, he couldn't get anyone to bite. And the only feedback we got from the publishers was that prior novels that targeted soap opera fans had failed commercially. And so none of them were willing to take a chance. We weren't writing in a category that was hot.
Right.
And as you might imagine, it was soul-crushing to have our dream stolen from us. We thought it was so close. Once we got the agent, because we had heard and read in our research that it's more difficult to get an agent than a publisher. It can be. Yeah. It can be.
Depending on like what frame of mind like the agent is in.
Yeah.
Like if you just happen to befriend them, right then and there, and they are able to basically say that they're ready to invest in you and not as like in either like instead of or in spite of or anything like the project, then all of a sudden you have something a little bit more concrete there. Like if all the agent knows is just the material, which is what, like you guys had. Yeah. To be able to get that is fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah. So here we were, after 2 years, we finally had, we had the come to Jesus meeting.
Right.
The agent called the meeting and said, look, I have done everything that I can do, and I'm afraid that, we've reached the end of the road. I'm not going to be able to sell it. But he said, I think you should consider self-publishing. And then he told us the story of another one of his clients for whom he couldn't sell her book.
Yeah.
She had written, it was nonfiction, I think. And she self-published after he couldn't sell. And over the course of the year, she sold 2,000 copies of her book, self-publishing.
Very nice.
And then she took the book back to our agent, and he was able to go back to the publishers and sell it in a week.
Wow.
And it's because she proved that there was a commercial market.
Yeah.
If a self-published author, selling books out of the trunk of her car can sell 2,000 copies, then, a publisher should be able to sell, 100,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
So he made that recommendation to us. And I thought about it. In fact, by that time, I'd already read Dan Pointer's book on self-publishing.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought about it, but self-publishing didn't seem satisfying to me because I didn't like the idea of filling our garage with thousands of unsold copies.
That's the old stigma with self-publishing. Yeah, it's something that
right.
that people were thinking, especially like around that time when it came to self-publishing. That basically meant that you were getting a catalog from Ex Libris and getting phone calls from salespeople at 2 in the morning. So
right,
yeah,
I realized that without access to bookstores,
yep,
you weren't going to sell any books, and the only way to get into bookstores was to get a publisher. So although self-publishing sounded interesting, print self-publishing did not. And so I thought about this problem, and the more I thought about it, I started thinking about, I imagined hundreds of thousands of other writers just like us around the world who had a dream publishing a book. And those authors were going to go to their graves unpublished simply because a publisher was unwilling or unable to say yes to them, to take a chance on them.
Yeah.
I thought this is wrong because this was this was 15 years ago now, almost 15 years ago. So blogging had just started hitting the scene in a really big way.
Right.
And YouTube had hit the scene in a big way. And I thought, if anyone can self-publish with a blog and achieve, and reach a large audience, if anyone can reach a large audience self-publishing a video on YouTube, why can't people self-publish a book? And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, I understand that print books are just way too expensive.
Yeah.
There's too much cost involved to produce, print all the bits of glue and paper and cardboard that needs to be shipped to a bookstore. And then most of those books, or a lot of those books, ends up being unsellable, and then they get shipped back to the publisher. And I thought, there's something wrong here. But what if we look at digital books? And so I started researching that. Yeah. And at the time that I first had this idea, digital books accounted for it was like 1/8 of 1% of the overall book market. But I looked really closely at the data, and I saw that the market was still growing. Yeah. It was just so far below anyone's radar.
Which is insane if you think about it now. Like now, nowadays it's just like it's gargantuan. But
yeah, now it's massive. But I don't know if you remember, but if you remember back in the late 90s, there was a lot of buzz about ebooks. And ebooks came on the scene in a fairly big way, and people were predicting that they were going to replace print books. Really? And you had, the first generation ebook reading devices came out, and ebooks completely flopped. They just
I think flopped. I kind of remember that. Just now, at first I was just like, oh, wait a minute. I thought it was like late 2000s. But now that I think about it, I could have sworn
it was the 90s.
Yeah, didn't they have discs or something?
Oh yeah, there was books on CD-ROM.
Right, yeah.
And, big clunky e-reading devices that were too expensive, really complicated copy protection schemes that made the book really unfriendly.
Yeah, and they basically, they showed the readers, if I remember correctly, they showed the readers in, catalogs in airplanes. That's that's the sort of market that they were going for, like kind of the sharper image kind of market.
Yeah. So ebooks completely flopped back then. But there was a very small number of people that were still absolutely enthusiastic about ebooks and stuck with ebooks.
About the possibility.
About the possibility of ebooks. And so I'm looking at the data and I see, so it grew. It's, as I'm working on the business plan, it took me a couple of years working on the business plan. I saw the market go from 1/8 of 1% to 1/4 of 1% to 1/2 of 1%. Yep. It was like, whoa, this market is growing.
Yeah. And
I was thinking, okay, well, if I project out, maybe 10 years, eventually the market might be 5%.
Right. But that's a great chunk right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we launched in early 2008. And for 2008, ebooks accounted for about 1/2 of 1% or 1%. And as it turned out, our timing was really great because just a few months before we launched, Amazon launched the Kindle.
Yep.
And Sony had already been on the market with the Sony Reader, and they were achieving success with the Sony Reader.
Oh, yeah.
So Sony, helped pioneer this before even Amazon. But Amazon came out with an amazing device that was low cost, that was promoted aggressively on their homepage for months and months.
Yep.
Amazon got behind it in a big way. And finally, the publishers got behind ebooks. And so we saw these ebooks coming. And then with Smash, the same time we launched Smashwords, just a couple months earlier, Amazon had, unbeknownst to me, was when I was working on the business plan years earlier, Amazon did something similar to what we did, a self-publishing platform, but only to get your books into their store.
Yeah.
So we launched at a really good time, and then shortly after that, Barnes and Noble got into ebooks in a big way.
With the Nook, yeah.
Kobo entered the market
with
their reader with an international focus. So that and so for that first year was 2008.
Yeah.
By the end of that first year, we were publishing 140 books from 90 authors. And I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. 90 authors, almost 100 authors have entrusted their precious books to us.
Yeah.
But on a good day, we were only selling about $10 worth of books.
Oof.
And our commission, we only make money if the book sells, and our commission's only about 10%.
Right.
And at the time, so for all of 2008, we were only selling the books in the Smashwords store.
Yeah.
So we were netting a whopping $1 a day.
Wow.
And this business was burning a $10,000 a month hole in my pocket.
Oh.
Because I was the sole funder of Smashwords.
Yeah.
And so I was very thankful at that time. Well, I had mixed feelings. Number one, I knew that I did not have limitless funds, and I was losing $10,000 a month. I was basically mortgaging my future here. Borrowed money on my house. I don't recommend anyone do that.
Right.
But I was also passionate about this idea. And then the next year, 2009, I had an epiphany.
Yeah.
I realized that readers are not going to go to smashwords.com to look for a book. No one's ever heard of smashwords.com. Readers go to bookstores to buy books.
Right.
And I thought, well, how can we get our books into the major bookstores? And I looked around and I realized that there were distributors that worked with publishers that would get books into stores, but none of these distributors were interested in self-published books.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what if Smashwords could become an ebook distributor? What if we could become, the big distributor at the time was Ingram, and they're still the world's largest book distributor. And I thought, well, what if Smashwords could become the Ingram of self-published ebook distribution?
Oh, wow.
And I remember telling my sole employee, our engineer, Bill, this idea that we could become the Ingram of ebook self-publishing, and we both laughed. It was an absurd idea.
Right.
We didn't know anything about distribution, not to mention that we knew that there was this tremendous stigma associated with self-published books, and I thought, no retailer is going to want self-published books. But I had conversations with Barnes & Noble and Sony, and to my surprise, both of them wanted all of our books.
Wow.
And I had to say, wait a second, you don't want all of our books. These books are self-published. They haven't been many of them have not been professionally edited. Let's at least set some certain standards. So we set standards for at least the layout and the formatting.
Right.
Once our books got into stores, they started selling. And then, so that was the light bulb moment that, yeah, I can make this business work. But 2 years after that,
yeah,
or year and a half after that, entering distribution, although our sales were ramping up really nicely, we were still losing money. And I had tapped out all my savings, and I was looking at our finances, and we were going to run out of money in about 3 months.
Oof.
And I was predicting it'd probably take at least another year to hit profitability.
Right.
So I did what every desperate person does. I picked up the phone and I called my mom.
Yeah.
And I said, Mom, do you want to invest in Smashwords? And I can still hear her voice today. She said, oh, Mark, that sounds so risky.
Oh, yeah.
She said, I'll lend you the money.
Yeah.
So I borrowed money from my mom. But then my dad said, no, you're not just going to give him the money. This needs to be written up with paperwork and a mortgage, and he's going to have to give you a loan on his rental house. And so I thought, okay, well, I had
that's what it comes to. Yeah.
My sole banker was requiring that I sign this paperwork. But I did that, and that kept us afloat, and we ended up hitting profitability about 3 months later, and then the rest is history. 11 years later, we're still in business.
Yep.
This is a tough business to be in. I got to be real straight with you.
Yes.
Publishing, this is not a business to enter if you're looking to make a lot of money. It's really tough.
Yeah.
And made all the tougher by some of the players in the business. But it's been an amazing experience. And, when I first came up with the idea for Smashwords, I thought, most of our books probably aren't going to sell well, but if only a small fraction of our authors can have a chance to, or if our authors can only have a chance to be judged by readers, that some small percentage of them are going to find an audience and become, bestsellers. I had faith that would happen.
Right.
And that is what happened. So a lot of our, some small percentage of our authors started selling really well. It was the romance authors who started selling the best early on. And the success of the romance authors inspired other authors to recognize that, you can self-publish professionally with pride and with commercial success.
Yeah.
And the success of the romance authors inspired authors in other genres and categories to start self-publishing. Mm-hmm. So, it's been great to, those very first authors that came to Smashwords, these were authors that couldn't get an agent, couldn't find a publisher. Basically, the industry had told them, your book is worthless to us.
Right.
And we gave them a chance, and some of these authors went on to become USA Today and New York Times bestsellers. And so that's really exciting to me. When I look back at the last 11 years, it's been great giving writers the opportunity to have their work judged by readers and to bypass these gatekeepers who were making decisions that weren't necessarily in the best interest of book culture or readers.
Just following trends.
They're just trying to follow trends. They're tracing trends. And it's dangerous to chase trends, because by the time you're chasing the trend's usually over.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the story of, how we got started, and it's been a wild ride.
Yeah. And just the fact that you're here, that means so much. By the way, those of you who don't know, this is yet another episode of Excelsior Journeys taking place at PennCon 2019. So a big shout out to Rick and Amy Miles for all of this happening. Now, how did you get involved with Rick and Amy?
Well, Amy is an author on Smashwords. Yeah. And she was one of our early bestsellers. Back in 2010, 2011, she was at the top of the charts and one of our bestsellers, and doing really well at our retailers. Our retailers were excited about her and giving her lots of merchandising and support. And so I met Amy through that experience, and, supporting her and helping to elevate her stature to the retailers so she could sell more books, and met Rick through that. and then they started PenCon, and so we just kind of came together and really gelled. Rick and Amy are amazing people.
They really are.
And they really care about people, and they're doing this entire event for charity, for autism, which is just more icing on the cake for their awesomeness.
Yep.
But also just, the vibe of the conference here. They're here to support writers, to help writers realize their dreams.
Yep.
They love books. Writers love books. Readers love books. So it's been a wonderful conference. I've been coming every year now.
Every year. Okay. Yeah. This is my third time around. So yeah.
This is their fifth.
This is 6
years.
This is number 6.
Okay. Yeah. So I only missed 1 year.
Oh wow.
So far.
Very nice. Yeah. So and I've said this to other people before, how Rick and Amy have been able to tap into such a voracious reader community is beyond me. It's just amazing because, guys, if you have ever been on the floor, on either of the ballroom floors at PenCon, it is like the stock exchange. Just like people are running through, going to all these different these different tables. They're walking out with wagons filled with books.
Yes, readers are buying wagons full of books.
Yes, it's wonderful. It absolutely renews your faith in reading. In reading, and writing. It's just a great vibe to be around. So I recognize like the writing part of it. So that's definitely like a great lightning bolt moment for getting Smashwords going as an author. Now, there's a lot more that goes into that realm, the technology of it and everything. How did you get involved in that part?
So my background is Silicon Valley. I'm born and bred in Silicon Valley. I'm the son of an engineer that used to work at IBM.
Mm-hmm.
My dad is the guy that invented, along with a team of about 4 other engineers, they invented the magnetic strip that's on the back of your credit card.
No kidding.
Yes. And
wow.
So that was at IBM, and that was in the 60s. And I remember growing up in the 60s and seeing the prototype cards laying all around the house. They initially did that job. It was work that they were doing for BART in the Bay Area Rapid Transit.
Okay.
They created the tickets for that, and that's how they did the magnetic strips on those cards.
You're welcome, shoppers.
Yes. You can thank IBM.
Right.
So my dad was always an inventor.
Yeah.
And after several years working at IBM, he quit IBM to start his own company. And so while I was in high school, he created this invention. He quit IBM.
Yeah.
And so suddenly money was tight in the family. Mm-hmm. And us kids were pretty bad about leaving the lights on in the house.
No, yeah.
It really upset my dad. He said, that's costing us $50 a year in electricity.
Wow.
And so he invented a solution to that. He invented a solid-state light switch timer that plugs into the same socket as a regular light switch, but it has a third position, which is a timer position. And you'd install this in attics and closets so that lights don't get left on accidentally.
Oh, man.
And I remember, so this was happening in high school.
Yeah.
Often, many evenings after dinner, we would gather around the kitchen table, and he'd pull out these soldering irons, and we would assemble these solid-state light switch timers.
Oh, wow.
And for me, it was just fun.
Yeah.
It was inspiring. And I've always been entrepreneurial since a kid. I mean, when I was 6 years old, I was selling my chickens' eggs door to door.
Really?
Yeah. When I was in Cub Scouts, I was selling all that stuff so you could get the little
merchandise. Oh yeah, yep.
Silly things.
Mm-hmm.
And so what my dad was doing was really inspiring.
Yeah.
And he ended up selling that company
mm-hmm.
And getting kind of screwed
in
the process, but he'd never sold a company before.
Mm.
But it was all still a really neat experience to see that. And so in high school, I started to fall in love with business. I started reading Forbes, Fortune, and the Wall Street Journal in high school. I was kind of an odd kid.
Wow.
But it was fascinating to me. And I opened up a Charles Schwab account in high school. This is back when
In high school.
This is back when they would let a 16-year-old with zero investing experience create a stock market account.
That is amazing. Like that's
yeah, and my first
kudos to Schwab for doing that. By the way, back then
they're not going to let you do that anymore.
Yeah.
I was probably one of their first clients, and my first investment was $300 in a coal company. I thought coal is the future.
Oh yeah, it's really the future.
But and I just started just devouring those business magazines, and I was especially fascinated by stories of how entrepreneurs would overcome hardships. I was just reading every story. I mean, if it was a story about a potato chip company and how they overcame hardships, there was something for me to learn in that. And so during high school, I took a class at the local community college. I wanted to find out about marketing. I took a marketing class, and that just kind of blew my mind. I was fascinated by marketing after taking that class. So I thought, okay, I want to go to business school, or study economics or something. So I was kind of silly. This was, in retrospect, this was stupid, but both of my parents went to UC Berkeley.
Okay,
I was actually born there.
Right.
While they were still students.
Oh, really?
Yes. And my parents never pressured me to go to college, but it just seemed natural that that's what I would do. And I was interested in business, and I heard Berkeley had one of the best economics programs. So I only applied to Berkeley.
Wow.
Which was crazy with a GPA of about 3.0.
Right.
But by some miracle, I got accepted.
Yeah.
And I was certain I was going to flunk out, because the only other people from my high school that made it there were like straight A students that were all the brainiacs.
Right.
But Berkeley was a huge challenge for me. I had to work really hard, and I did pretty well. And they have a 2-year business program. So after your freshman and sophomore year, you can apply to join their 2-year business program. And so I went on that track, got accepted to the business school, graduated with a degree in business. Before I graduated, my father started another company.
Really?
Yes. And this time it was a software company. And I was never interested in technology.
Yeah.
And I had no interest in software, but I did have an interest in starting companies. And I thought, well, okay, this sounds a lot of fun what he's doing. And on a lark, he printed up business cards for me that said, Mark Coker, Vice President of Marketing and Sales.
Ah, okay.
And I was like, wow, I've got this card, and I've got this big title, and I am in my dorm room, and I'm his VP of Marketing, and my job was to make the phone ring so we could sell software.
Oh.
But I didn't know anything about selling software, and my dad didn't give me a marketing budget.
Right.
So how am I supposed to make the phone ring? And so I thought, well, maybe if we could get press coverage, maybe if the trade journals would write reviews about our software or write stories about our software.
Okay.
So I started, I went to the university library. I started picking up these trade magazines like MIS, Information Systems, things you've never heard of, things that aren't in print anymore.
Yeah.
And I just started.
They're all like industry.
Industry trade magazines.
Yeah.
And I'd call the reporter, say, hey, you want to review our software? And I remember calling this one reporter, and I'll never forget him. His name's Russell Lockwood. I think he lives in New Jersey. He said, well, that sounds interesting. Why don't you send me a press release? I said, he said, send me your press kit.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, what's a press kit? I didn't know what a press kit was. He said, well, it'll include a press release and data sheets. And I said, well, what's a press release?
Right.
I mean, I was completely clueless.
Yeah.
And he was generous enough with his time to just
walk
answer
you through
these newbie questions.
That's great.
And so, I learned how to write a press release.
Yep.
And we learned how to write data sheets. They were probably horribly done, but we did what we could, and we'd send our press kits out. And over the course of a couple of years, I think I landed him probably about 30 stories in, the big trade journals at the time.
Yeah.
PC Magazine and Personal Computing and PC Week and InfoWorld. But even on a good month, we were only selling about $3,000 worth of software. And my arrangement with my dad was that I would get a 10% commission on everything I sold.
Oh, okay.
So a couple of years into this job with my dad, I was basically living on my credit cards. I was $20,000 in debt because his company wasn't taking off. And then I had a conversation with him, about this is what we need to do to grow the company. And he said, well, we don't want to do that. We'd have to hire people.
Yeah.
See, my dad's an engineer.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to manage people. He wants to invent. And so we had a little bit of a disconnect there. Here I had dreams of building the next Microsoft.
Right.
And he had dreams of, tinkering. And so, I decided it was time for me to leave. Leave with $20,000 in debt and find a job. And it was during the first Gulf War, which was also during a recession.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what skills I could point to. I ended up getting a job at IBM working in manufacturing. I was assembling mainframe hard disk drives.
Wow.
So this is a total blue-collar job.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun.
Yeah. It's almost like you're right back at the dining room table.
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
I was building things with my hands.
Right.
And I always thought that, when I start my company, it's going to be something that we build, something real and tangible.
Yeah.
Now, the practical side of me, there I am working this job at IBM. All of my fellow coworkers are like barely graduated from high school.
Yeah.
And my college degree was worthless there. And it was so much fun, but I thought, I should probably apply to graduate school. That seems like the thing to do. And so I applied to a bunch of grad schools. And so there I'm working at IBM, and I get accepted to Carnegie Mellon. I thought, well, this is neat, but I'm really enjoying my blue-collar job here. I just really loved building these hard drives.
Yeah.
And so I said no to Carnegie Mellon.
Also saves you the debt and everything.
I wasn't thinking about that too much. I was thinking, because Carnegie Mellon had this really great entrepreneurship program, and that's what I wanted to do.
Okay, yeah.
And I thought, we'll find the money some way, and so I go into debt, with loans. So I'll get a good job after.
Yeah.
About a month after I said no to Carnegie Mellon, IBM laid me off.
Oh, man.
So here I am in the middle of this recession.
Yeah.
There are very few jobs in Silicon Valley, and I'm thinking, okay, what can I point to that I've been successful at? And I thought, well, I was successful at PR, working for my dad. So I thought, well, why don't I apply to PR agencies? And
makes sense. Yeah.
After a couple months of looking, I got a job at one of the top PR agencies in Silicon Valley. Turned out to be a total sweatshop. Over the course of the 1 year and 9 months that I worked there, they had more than 100% turnover of their 20 employees.
Wow.
It was just a horrible place to work. I remember my first week on the job, seeing employees driven to tears by our abusive bosses.
Yeah.
It was a crazy environment, but my bosses, for the most part, left me alone because I kept my clients happy. And I really enjoyed working with my clients. And the first client they gave me was a storage company, a hard disk company.
Ah, there you go.
And so that became my thing. And
it's your bread and butter almost.
Yeah, you never know. The most menial jobs you have in life are going to come back and be valuable to you in the future.
Yeah.
So it was really. So I became like the storage guy at our agency, and then got into security, computer security. And then after a year and 9 months, I thought, okay, this environment is too abusive. I'm going to leave and start my own agency.
Wow.
I knew nothing about starting a PR agency. I knew nothing really about starting my own company. I didn't know how you do the finances or how you set up a company and all that stuff. But I just did it. I thought, all I need to do is get one client. And if I can make that client really happy, then I'll get more clients. That's generally my approach.
Right.
Most of my family members were not supportive of me doing this, but I did it, got that one client. That client became more clients, and eventually, we became, I won't say we're one of the largest agencies, but, we grew to 12 people, and we were one of the top 20 PR agencies in San Jose, according to the San Jose Business Journal, according to our revenues. So we had our moment in the sun and success, and that was fun. And working in PR was great because my job was to make our clients famous.
Yeah.
So I was working directly with the CEO and with the VP of marketing. So here I am, this 20-something-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I remember getting off the phone the first time where I laid out my own shingle, and I was running my own PR agency, and I get off the phone with this guy who just sold his company to McAfee for $10 million.
Wow.
And I just laid on the floor, and I couldn't believe this guy, this super accomplished guy, is asking me for my advice.
Right.
And I was just a sponge. I learned so much working with these top executives and brilliant, brilliant people. Learned so much. And in PR, you're working with a variety of different clients. So you see what's working, what's not, and lots of different technologies. So that was a great experience. It was during that, almost 15 years later, around the time that Leslie Ann was hired, when we were trying to grow, right before the .com bubble burst on us.
Right.
I was getting a little bit burnt out on PR. And then when the .com bubble burst, that was just devastating. We lost probably 70% of our business over the course of 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
It was like a nuclear
It really
bomb
did,
hit.
just when that happened. It's something that you just kind of look back and just kind of remember, just wait a minute, I remember there were all these different smaller companies and everything that were all doing all these different things, and all of a sudden just gone.
Yeah.
Just that was it the pets.com.
Yeah.
See that, with the sock puppet,
Yes.
the puppet with the microphone. Gone. One of my favorite things that I remember from when I was living in New York, Urban Fetch. It was just this great delivery service and everything that would deliver all types of things, even DVDs and CDs and everything. Gone.
Yes.
So it's amazing just how quickly all of that went.
It went really quickly. During the 90s, things got too heated.
Yeah.
And you had too much hype. You had too much money flowing into these companies. The stock market was booming.
Yeah.
Venture capitalists, Silicon Valley is the center of venture capital. They were just throwing money at everything, like pets.com and Webvan and
Webvan,
the grocery delivery service.
Yep.
And then the .com bubble burst. It really was like a nuclear winter in Silicon Valley, and all the companies had to cut spending. And the first folks that get cut are the contractors, the PR agency, because you don't have to pay severance or anything. You just say, sorry, your contract's over.
Yeah.
So we were the first to get cut. So that was really tough. But it was also around that time that the bubble burst that I met Leslie Ann, and she presented this idea of writing this novel together. And I thought, I'm ready to do this. This is a dream, and it's not really the path I expected to take, but this sounds like fun. And so we did it, and it was an amazing experience. But it was thanks to my Silicon Valley experience that when I was presented with this problem, this challenge, that we've got this, when publishers wouldn't publish us.
Yeah.
And I imagined this problem, it's my Silicon Valley experience that really led me to the solution. Because one thing about Silicon Valley, part of the culture there is this idea that technology can offer the solution to all the world's problems. Mm-hmm. And in the 90s, we saw a lot of problems being solved. And that kind of reinforced this idea. We hadn't seen the dark side of technology yet, as we've seen now.
Right. But that's really the dark side of technology happens because of the dark side of humanity.
Yes.
It's, technology is the tool that humanity makes happen.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
But, so here I approach this problem with my Silicon Valley idealism.
Yeah.
That, here's a problem that could be solved by technology. And I'm not a programmer. Mm-hmm. I've tried to learn programming. I suck at programming. It's just not my skill.
Right.
Even though my brothers are programmers, my dad's a programmer, I'm missing that gene.
Yeah.
But I've taken enough programming to know how to speak with programmers and respect them and work with them. And so, I thought, okay, here's an opportunity where we could use technology to create a free publishing platform.
Yeah.
The paper is digital, so it's digital bits and bytes. So
no overhead.
We'll create the technology so that all you have to do is upload your word processing file, and then we'll convert it into multiple ebook file types.
Yep.
And if the book sells, great. We'll make our 10%. If it doesn't sell, it didn't cost us anything to print that book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what was going through my mind at the time.
Now, one of the things that I've noticed, I've experienced, from from working with Smashwords, because that was actually where I uploaded my first book, Excelsior. My first book that was eligible for an ebook. I need to just rephrase that, because the first book was the 2002 edition of From Parts Unknown, which that was never made into an ebook, and thankfully that was never made into an ebook, because but at the same time, I've told that story several times before, but I was thrilled to work with Smashwords when I uploaded Excelsior to it, because you guys offered so many great opportunities for people to really discover their books. Those of you who haven't used Smashwords yet, what it does is it not only allows you to create the give you an ebook in different formats, but you can get it on all the different platforms. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it on iTunes. You can get it as a PDF. You can get it on Kobo. You can get it all over the place. And that allows so much opportunity for so many people to discover you. And that's something that I feel was a real benefit, to me.
Yeah, that was the big challenge that needed to be tackled back then, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, is that self-published authors were denied access to retail. So denied the opportunity to be discovered and judged by readers.
Right.
But what we found is that thanks to ebooks enabled every retailer to start carrying every book.
Yep.
Once those books started appearing side by side with the books from traditional publishers, and readers could actually look at it and judge it for themselves and read it, many of those books started selling, and people realized that maybe publishers aren't as omniscient as I don't know if that's the right word, as we thought.
Yeah.
Maybe they aren't the
be all end all.
Yeah. Because there was this attitude, 10, 11 years ago, that only publishers had the divine wisdom to identify which books were worthy of publication.
Right.
But the dirty little secret in publishing is they don't really know.
Yeah.
They apply their best educated guess, but only, readers will determine what becomes a bestseller. And often the reader doesn't know what they want to read until it slaps them upside the head.
Yeah.
It's these black swans that come out of nowhere that change the world, from authors who've been told, no one wants to buy that book. I don't know how to categorize that book.
Right.
That book doesn't have a market. No one's ever bought a book like that. Well, that's the neat thing about creativity, is the creative person can invent something that doesn't exist.
Yep.
Every author knows this. Every writer knows this. And if there's a market for it, the market will find it.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I have always really, respected about Smashwords, especially in later years, is that while other companies are looking for opportunities to take things away from the authors, Smashwords has been looking for opportunities to constantly give to the authors and basically give more incentive to get them involved with Smashwords. So now you have one big thing that I'm thrilled about is Find Away Voices. Tell us about how that got together.
So Find Away Voices is a company that produces and distributes audiobooks. And I remember, I've always had an interest in audiobooks, and we've had people encouraging us to get into the audiobook market. But I was, my attitude was always, we're experts in ebooks. Audiobooks is something different. And, there are already people out there doing that, so I wasn't so interested. But I got a call from one of the executives at Apple.
Really? They were the ones, huh?
Apple Books. And, basically for I don't know, it was maybe at least a decade, Apple had signed some kind of exclusive deal with Amazon that they were only going to sell books from Amazon's Audible division.
Right.
But that agreement was coming to an end, which was going to free up Apple to start, doing audiobooks on their own and audiobooks from other suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
And so Apple said, look, we're working with this company, Findaway Voices, and we'd like you to talk to them.
Ah.
Now, Findaway Voices had already been chasing us for the prior 3 years.
Really?
But when Apple said, okay, we'd like you to do this.
Now all of a sudden you have a market.
Yeah.
There's
When they
a
asked us to
marketplace
jump, we asked how high.
Right.
And so we engaged with Findaway Voices in that way, and really proud of the integration that we created with them. It's integrated into our publishing workflow. So you publish your ebook at Smashwords, which is really easy. And then once your book is at Smashwords, we give you an option to click a button and have your book transferred over to Findaway. And once they have your ebook, they know how many words it is, and they can automatically start estimating, what it would cost to produce the book, given the different prices for different narrators, different packages.
Yeah.
And then the author can start interviewing narrators.
Yep.
So that's been in place for about 1.5 years now, I guess.
You say it's been going well?
I think we've had, over 1,000 authors. I don't know what the exact number is, but we've had a lot of books created through Findaway.
That's excellent.
I think we're still in the very early days of this. One of the challenges for self-published authors with audiobooks, obviously, is that the author has to finance the production, and that's a big investment. It can be several $1,000s, and that's a lot of money. Yeah,
but now, granted, that's like high end. There are other people, and speaking from experience, myself included, that are able to, produce an audiobook at a substantially lower rate.
Right.
But at the same time, when an author is dealing with a low to no budget, they have to pinch their pennies, as they say here.
They need to get lucky and find someone like George, who's going to be able to do a quality, affordable job for them. But the day is going to come where you're so big and so popular and so famous that you're not going to be available to lend your services to everyone.
Well, that would be nice, though. I would have to say that.
Well, it'd be nice for you, but not so nice for the person that can't afford the other people.
True.
And has to choose someone who's lower quality. But
at the same time, though, there are people that are of, they may be of lower price, but not as much as lower quality. Like there's always like that, as soon as one is coming up, there's always someone else who's coming up right after them.
Yeah, you want to find that talented person that's just getting started, who's willing to do a deal, to put you on the resume, and So, and the audiobook market is really exciting to me. The audiobook market is the fastest growing segment of the publishing industry. It's quite possible, within the next 3, 4, 5 years that the audiobook market is larger than the ebook market.
Yeah.
One of the neat things about audiobooks is that it opens up more time for enjoying books.
Yes.
The time you're stuck in the car, just like podcasting.
Yep.
The time you're, in the car, doing your morning commute, doing your morning exercise, gardening, washing dishes. All this new time is now available to you to enjoy books. So audiobooks are awesome.
So with that in mind, you said that they have them in their car. Obviously, there are other places that, that allow you to, download and play audiobooks. Is there an app for Findaway that they have where audiobooks are available for people to?
I don't think they have an app.
Is it just from, getting it from like the retailer, like say iTunes?
Yeah. What Findaway is going to do is they're going to assist with the production of the book.
Right.
They'll help connect you with narrators, professional narrators, let you decide who you want to hire.
Yeah.
And then they'll manage the professional production and the editing of the book. and then they'll
And
distribute
the quality
the book.
control. Yeah.
The quality control.
Yeah.
And then they'll get the book distributed to these different sales outlets.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And, another neat thing about our relationship with Findaway is that, if you go through Smashwords to reach Findaway,
Yep.
you're going to make exactly the same royalty rate as if you go direct to
That's
Findaway.
great.
So it's a big convenience for our authors, for our 100,000 plus authors who,
100,000 plus authors. Like
Yeah.
that's considering how, how it all started. That's such a terrific climb right up there to have that many authors and more and growing, I would think.
we're adding more authors every day.
Yep.
And more books every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say also every day the business becomes more and more challenging.
Right.
When we launched Smashwords 11 years ago, there was nothing like us.
Right.
We were first of the kind.
Yep.
When we opened Barnes & Noble and Sony for the first time to self-published ebooks, there was only one way to get your book there.
Yeah.
But now there are literally hundreds of competitors.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of Smashwords clones out there.
Yep.
And not going to name their names, but they're just everywhere.
They know who they are.
Yeah, they know who they are. And it's created a much more confusing environment for authors. And at the same time, the retailers are now offering their own self-publishing platforms.
Yep.
So that you don't even have to work with a distributor. You can work directly with the retailer if you want, if you don't want to pay us our 10%.
Right.
So, even our partners, the companies that we've devoted, millions of dollars to supporting and helping, they're stealing our authors or trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think like one real big advantage that you have is that you and Smashwords are always thinking of different ways that you can entice the authors to stay, or or keep or cross over to.
Yeah. And you have to in really any industry.
Yeah.
You've got to constantly be innovating. You cannot rest on your laurels.
Mm-hmm.
My background is in startups, supporting startups, helping launch startups, going back to PR or going back to my dad or going back to selling my eggs
Right.
door to door. My view is that even after your company's, we're 11 years old, I still feel like we're a startup.
Yeah.
We need to hold on to that. We need to continue to innovate. And we are, we listen very carefully to our authors, what they want, what they love about us, what they hate about us. We're always, every single week we are making improvements to Smashwords. We're publishing new code every single week. And some of it is obvious and some of it's kind of behind the scenes, incremental stuff, but we're always, doing stuff to try to support our authors and help them be more successful.
I'm looking forward to it too, because I have just recently, since From Parts Unknown has been refashioned into the big omnibus edition. So it's got, like all 5 parts in one book. I'm happy to report that it's that by the time you hear this, it's going to be available to buy on Smashwords. So by all means, please go over there and take a look at it. Do you have any, speaking of other authors, do you have any advice that you can give for them? I know you have like a whole lot of different secrets, which are amazing. I'm not going to ask you to get into them, like right now, but at the same time, like if you can give like one good like nugget of advice to aspiring authors who think they have some sort of idea but aren't quite sure what to do with it once they have it out on the page, what do you have for them?
Join a local writers group.
Yeah.
That should be the first thing you do. There are writers groups all around the country, all around the world. Get together with your fellow tribespeople.
Yeah.
Because no one will understand what you're going through like another writer. And,
Amen to that.
And writers are so supportive of one another. Yeah. You can learn from them. Once your book, as you're getting ready, as you're writing the book, writers groups are really good about, helping each other, running critique groups, being able to stand up in front of the group and read portions of your book and receive, positive critical feedback. Mm-hmm. That's really important. Getting to hear stories. Often writers groups have, expert speakers come in every month and share their wisdom. So you just be a sponge, learn as much as you can. Nothing's more important than the craft.
Yeah.
So always focus on the craft. A lot of authors, a lot of self-published authors make the mistake of focusing too much on the business of publishing. Like, how do I market? How do I advertise the book?
Right.
And what's working now? What should I be doing? What's the shiny object that I should be chasing? And that distracts from what really matters.
Yeah.
What really matters are professional publishing best practices. And I've written 3 books on those topics. Best practices are the things that make your book more available, more discoverable, more desirable, and more enjoyable to readers.
Yeah.
And there's not just one single magic bullet that will catapult you to bestsellerdom. There are literally dozens of things that the writer needs to do right, and then you constantly need to innovate and iterate on those, because the world's always changing.
Yeah.
So you always want to make everything you're doing better and better and better. I mean, the same thing about my philosophy about running Smashwords should be your philosophy as a writer, that you can't just stay in a stasis.
You always have to keep pushing.
Always keep pushing yourself to be a better and better writer. As I talked about in my sessions today, a good book isn't good enough anymore.
Yeah.
If you want people to read your book, you need to take them to an emotionally satisfying extreme. You need to rock their world. You need to change their life. And luckily, most writers are the most visionary, passionate, excited people that you're ever going to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Writers have a vision in their head for how they want their words, their stories to touch people, to touch their emotions, to inspire them, to make them feel things, see things, learn things. There's so much you can do with fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah.
And so writers are visionary people and inspiring people. I mean, I find so much inspiration from writers. I have so much admiration for anyone who can complete a book, especially after going through it myself. It is one of the toughest things you can ever do, but it's also one of the most pleasurable, enjoyable, satisfying things that you can do. Even if you never sell a single copy of the book, there's something.
It's that celebration that you've accomplished it, that feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah.
That so many people don't do. They always say that they want to do it. They always say they have one in mind. They say I have like this book in me. You have to get it out in order for it to be something.
You have to get it out. And, it is a big task to say, okay, I'm going to write a 100,000 word novel.
Yeah.
Or a 200,000 word epic fantasy novel or whatever.
Yeah.
I would encourage, you or people out there listening who want to publish a book someday, start with short stories.
Yeah.
Hone your craft. Because just because a short story is shorter doesn't mean it's necessarily easier.
Right.
It'll take less time than a 100,000 word novel, but try to write short stories. Try to sell that short story to one of the magazines or zines or websites that publish those.
Yeah.
And keep writing. The more you write, the more feedback and critique you get. The better writer you're going to become, and just plan on becoming a better writer every single day. I mean, what I've found, I've been writing most of my life. PR involved a lot of writing.
Yeah.
And what I've found is that certain parts of writing get easier over time.
Yeah.
But the part that doesn't get easier is achieving that satisfaction of knowing that you did your best.
Yeah.
Because the more you write and the more you edit, the pickier you get about your writing. And I've talked with other writers, they say the same thing. Just being a writer and going through that process, it changes you. It changes how you speak. It changes how you read.
Changes how you view the world.
Yeah, it does. It does. So, it's all a process.
Excellent. And if anyone was to look for you on social media, obviously they can find you on Smashwords itself. Can they find you at all, like on social media?
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter. It's Mark Coker, MarkCoker. So at Mark Coker. I'm on Facebook. You can find me facebook.com/Mark Coker. I think I got that.
Yep.
I'm on there. my email address is mc@smashwords.com. I'm always happy to hear from anyone who's interested in publishing. I can't be your personal support person, but I can certainly point you in the right direction. And I just like to help people, continue down this path, because, all of us need someone who's going to be willing to stand there and lend a helping hand to help, on those first steps.
Yep. Absolutely. They say in this world, in this writing community, when one of us succeeds, all of us succeed.
Yes.
And I couldn't think of a better person who illustrates that more than Mark Coker, because not only does he provide the platform for so many people to get discovered, he not only gives you the stage, but he also gives you so many different tools that you need to succeed. And it's something that I really think that more people would definitely benefit from going to smashwords.com, from getting their account set up, uploading their work, and seeing what happens. Because I have nothing but admiration for the man, for everything that he's done in this business. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. And
we've got something.
Oh, we got. Do we have a scoop?
Coming.
Do we have a scoop?
It's a pre-scoop without the scoop.
Okay, all right.
We are working on something that we're probably going to launch in the next month or two.
Oh, okay. So this will probably be out by by closer around the time when this comes out. Okay. Just to let you know. So it's going to be out say mid-October. So.
Or earlier.
Oh.
We're teasing it right now. If you go to smashwords.com/next.
Next.
N-E-X-T.
Oh boy.
So we're creating something that I think is going to change how authors launch books.
Oh wow.
And it's going to be patent pending. So we're working on the patent application right now, and I can't tell anyone, not even all Smashwords employees. Only a few Smashwords employees know about this. It is so top secret.
Yeah.
But once we file for the patent, we can start talking about it.
Excellent.
And what we're going to launch, it's already coded. It's ready. It's going to be a feature at Smashwords, and it represents the first iteration of a audacious, ambitious plan that is pretty crazy.
Nice. And we welcome that, as the community. We definitely welcome that.
As a community, because I've got to say I'm concerned as a community. I talked about how 10, 11 years ago, the challenge was just getting access to retail. And self-publishing made it possible for authors to become their own publishers. Ebooks made it possible for authors to get distribution. Mm-hmm. But I fear right now that the independence that authors have enjoyed over the last 10 years is being taken away.
Yes.
And, in my podcast, Smart Author, I did an episode where it was my favorite episode of all my episodes, where I looked at the history of publishing going back to, I traced the roots of self-publishing back to the Gutenberg printing press.
Oh, wow.
And I went down a total rat hole just studying that, but it was fascinating. And one thing I realized is that through all time, since the introduction of the Gutenberg printing press, there have always been forces, whether the forces are political, religious, societal, or commercial forces, that seek to control the printing press, seek to control what people publish, what people think, what people know. And, publishing is so important. We take so much of this for granted, but free expression cannot be taken for granted.
Absolutely.
And it's something that's, core to my belief. I think it's core to really modern society, that people need the freedom to express themselves. And so throughout history, there have always been different attempts at censorship, to censor the printing press, to control it. Starting with Gutenberg.
Right.
He upset the Catholic Church. It was the printing press that enabled Martin Luther to start the Protestant Reformation. So I talked about all that, and it's just fascinating. And we're to a point now where there are new forms of censorship being introduced, new barriers that are preventing writers from publishing with total freedom. And, I started Smashwords as an author to enable free expression. And this is going to be my attempt to reestablish author independence. And it's going to be difficult to pull off because we're a small company.
Yeah.
And we don't have unlimited resources.
Yep.
But if authors get behind this, I think it's going to help authors, take back their independence and build a platform that they control.
Excellent.
So that you never have to be at the mercy of a retailer.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Now, like, I'm even more excited about the future of Smashwords than I was before. So,
this is it is ambitious what we're going to try to pull off, and the vision. Not everyone's going to be able to see the patent because it doesn't become publicly published for a year and a half after we file it.
Right.
So we're not even going to be able to reveal everything about this, but we're going to be able to reveal enough that I think it's going to change the industry.
Yeah.
At least I hope it does. In my mind, it's flattering to hear everything that you said so kind about myself and about Smashwords. The opportunity to positively impact the world, I think, is just as great with this idea if we can execute on it. But, as an entrepreneur, as someone who knows how difficult it is to run a business, and how easy it is for businesses to fail, this big idea could fail spectacularly for us. And if it fails, that would be really sad because authors are going to continue to lose their independence if it doesn't succeed.
Yeah. So by all means, I'm telling you guys, you definitely want to get involved with Smashwords. If you are, just an author who's up and coming, who is, not sure about the next step that they are going to go in, just check out smashwords.com, check it out, see what Mark has left for all of us. You got a friend in him, and you have a supporter of our business. You have somebody who wants us all to succeed. And that's something that is a wonderful, wonderful thing to hear in this day and age. So this has been just an amazing chat that I've had with you, Mark. And this has been, I hope, all of you have enjoyed this just as much as I have. So for Mark Coker, CEO of Smashwords, this is George Sirois saying to all of you, ever upward. I'll see you next week.